Welcome back. Reap the Harvest Live. Matt Tack and Pat Hilton. How you doing, Matty?
What's going on, brother boy? How are
Welcome
you?
back. Oh, dude, great. We were just talking about Momentum Monday, and I'm glad we do these Momentum Mondays because it's like I've been up cranking, got my workout in, ate a little protein shake, played with the kids. You know what I mean? Ran around the garage with the kids. I like told you, I've been doing the HIIT training in the garage. It's just more
Love it.
convenient. Plus, rainy
Yeah.
morning today, so I'm glad I've been doing it because I was prepared to do it. So it
Look
worked
at
out great. Oh, you know, I do what I can in this world. I do what I can. I gotta say, the COVID thing's really played to my advantage. I put jeans on the other day for the first time in like 5 months because I had to go somewhere to take pictures. I just wear my athletic shorts. I've been wearing athletic shorts in the house for months. So, you know, life's not bad. Life's not bad. But we're going to kick in the intro. We're going to come back, talk about starting your week off with momentum, putting in the work, and making things happen. So smooth and so groovy on a Monday morn. So yeah, Momentum Monday. It's all about the momentum. For guys like us, it's like we're up, we get into work. I mean, you were texting me at what, 6:30? I was pumping out files at like 8. I mean, we got stuff to do.
Man. I was up at 5 with the baby girl. You know, John Maxwell says that it's not honestly about honestly who really works hardest, or it's honestly not even who it's what he says. He gets it on the bottom line of Big John, obviously Maxwell. Who starts first, right? Who starts the day first? That's typically who's going to win, right? And you posted something the other day as far as you got to know when your where your flow state is, where your trigger point is during the day, right? To be most fluid. You know, for me, it's definitely in the morning. You know, I think conditionally, people might think they operate better at night, but I think that can be actually adjusted. I think, you know, I think starting out in like college years, you've almost conditioned your mind to think like, oh, I'm going to procrastinate. Like, this is me. So I'm not talking about everything, like, because there's definitely more proactive people than me, but we condition our thing to, we have to like kind of punch through that wall of like perpetual laziness. I feel like every human is inherently like lazy to an extent, right? In college, I'm not a big believer in college, to tell you the truth. I mean, I think I might fight people on a lot of this, but like, I think that we send kids and people to college for the purposes of like a season of life, right? Whatever it might be, like go figure yourself out. Like what? I think we can do a lot better job at K through 12 at like conditioning our minds to, by the time we get to college, we kind of have like a better idea of where a strength zone lies. But you had mentioned, so in college, I distinctly remember like staying late up at night. Like I thought that was like I was in my strength zone, right? Or I was in my flow state later at night and I'm like drinking coffee, you know, trying to study to get, you know, this exam in the next, you know, day or two. But you know, that's where things start, right? And then you get into the real world, and I got a job in the real world. Obviously, I wasn't I was an entrepreneur early on, so I started up a painting business in college. But I think that like in college, we are conditioned to think, oh, our flow state is much later in the day, and it won't be. I'll speak on behalf of myself. I'm not thinking like at anybody in general, but I think it's a large pool of people that think their flow states happen later in the day. But in reality, I think you can condition the mind to operate earlier in the day when you're a lot sharper, so that if you get to bed earlier, obviously you get to a little bit better, you get that full 8 hours of sleep, you're up, and you're starting your day out first, right? And so this morning I was up at 5 a.m. I was up at 5 a.m. with my kid, and I had committed to there's a couple guys at church that were doing a Bible study. They have a consistent Bible study on Mondays. So I go up there and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be different because my kid was up with me at 5 a.m. My 1-year-old, she was crying. She usually gets up. And what goes in your head typically, I think 90 to 95% of people would be like, oh, this is my out. I don't have to work out, or I don't have to show up to this potential Bible study because my kid's up, right? I have a good excuse. And I'm like, no, I'll just take my kid with me. Right. So I rolled up in there with my baby girl and her jammies, and we just rolled up and kicked it together. You know what I mean? And we did biz together, and we celebrated life with a couple of guys there. We were studying the book of James. It was pretty good. And so we got to speak life. You know, I love community of men and women. And so we did that, and then I bounced out. But like, hey, I posted something about sacrifice. I feel like that's a little bit of sacrifice even for me, because right now, like, oh, do I really want to take my 1-year-old kid? She was phenomenal, by the way. She was really good. But like talking, engaging, and I have to hold a baby for the next 45 minutes in my arms. Like, I'm going to embrace that scenario, number one. But two, it allows my wife to get a little extra sleep, right? And that's the benefit of like the sacrificial piece of marriage, right? Sometimes I'm not able to work out. I got to pivot. I got to change things up. But I woke up first. I want to start out my day. By 9 o'clock, I want to get my workout in. I want to get my kids to school. I want to do a number of things, right? I want to get my Spanish in. I want to get, a devotional, my mindset right, go through my affirmations, my goals before 9 a.m. because I don't want to get to 9 a.m. and then be like, oh, I got to cram all this other stuff in. You know what I mean?
Right.
I lose momentum. I lose the structure in my day. So, and I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but I'll tell you what, more often than not, I would say about like 90% of my mornings look like that, right? I'm getting things in before 9 a.m. that most people think, oh man, it takes me to like 1 or 2 o'clock to get to that point, right? It's he who starts first. Who's going to start first? How are you going to start the day off first?
I was watching Tim Grover speak at the 10X event I played at, and I performed like right at the lunch break time. And then I think he came on like 1 or 2 slots after me. So it wasn't long after me, but I was like on the side of the stage because I wasn't leaving the VIP area once I finally got in there after I played. I'm like, I'm not leaving until they kick me out of here. And I remember watching him from like the side. So I was like way closer than I was the rest of the time. Yeah. And he even said, he's like, man, if you're like counting to 3 to get started, man, there's somebody that already started.
Yeah.
By the time you're on 2, somebody's already way ahead of you because they started without counting. So quit waiting for the perfect time and setting yourself up and getting yourself trying to give yourself fake motivation and all this. Just go. Because a lot of times that 3 seconds could be the determining factor of your success or not. How many times did Michael Phelps win by like millionths or whatever they are, 1/1000th of a second in a race? There's that famous picture of the guy who's doing like breaststroke or butterfly or whatever, and he's like looking over to see where Michael Phelps is. Michael Phelps isn't even paying attention to that guy.
You're right.
Remember that picture? Like, he's just going straight ahead, dude. And that guy ended up not getting the win. Michael Phelps was not concerned about where that guy was in the pool. He was concerned about where he was going. So I thought that was an interesting lesson when he brought that up. I was like, oh, how much time are we wasting getting ready to get started instead of just doing it?
So, hey, this is actually, there's 2 things that I thought were good analogies in that circumstance. When you're like, before you jump into the water, anywhere, like a pool or wherever, you always like kind of graze your feet in the water.
Oh, and it's freezing cold and you don't want to get in.
You graze your feet cold and you're like, oh man, I don't know and then you're working yourself up, right? You're like, oh, I don't know how cold the water, it's going to freeze my body. Right. And then it takes you like 3 or 4 minutes to jump in. Like, just put your ass in the water, man. Like, just jump in the water.
That's true.
Another thing is, for me, I thought was a good analogy. I figured like this would be a good kind of. So I've been doing Spanish, but like then you have like quizzes, and these quizzes are timed, and I've realized, right, something, the analogy that you're giving to Michael Phelps, that, and this is like, I like giving just like true terms to myself, that I know other people probably are like running through the same thing. I'm not swimming for a gold medal. Those are bigger stakes probably that I'll ever have at my 35 years of age. But the one thing is that conditioning of the mind in a much smaller way, right, is I'm doing these quizzes right in the morning. So I do them about 5:30 in the morning. So I'm going through my Spanish exercises, and I'll be taking these quizzes, and I've started to not keep my eyes focused on the time, because the time revert then makes me think subconsciously to a countdown, right? And then I become like, your anxiety levels go up, different like kind of cortisol releases where you're trying to get through, and you're like, you almost tense, you tense up. You're like, oh my gosh, like I got to get through this, right? Instead, I'm just like, whatever, like just like really kind of focusing on what am I trying to learn, like in this sentence, in this pattern. And if I mess up, hey, I messed up. If time ran out, time's gonna run out in life, right? We're no gauger. We can't gauge of when our clock's gonna run out, right? So I think that's a perfect example of what you're saying. Like, we're looking around, we're bobbing our head around the wall. Where's this guy at? Where's this guy at? That goes back to kind of comparison as the thief of joy, right? We're trying to, like, that's when we think of that scarcity mindset. It's like, work on your own clock, right? Don't check other people's clock out. Your clock will run out. We don't know when our clock is exactly going to run out, but like, how do we just keep moving? What's the movement? What's the start look like, and what's the movement? So I was talking on mastermind with my buddy a little bit, even this week, about like, sometimes you just got to make a choice. It's whether it's the right, what you think is the right choice at that given moment. And sometimes there's not a wrong choice. It's either maybe best or better or best, right? You just have to make you have to make what you think is the best decision for yourself. Sometimes maybe they don't play out that way. What's the pivot look like then?
But you got to make a decision. So here's something I've noticed too. Right? Here's something I've noticed too, because I've been following the presidential race a lot on Twitter, and I've said I follow both sides because I like to see everyone argue. It just kind of makes me laugh. And so one thing I've noticed, and it has nothing to really do with the election, it's a mindset thing that I've noticed in the comments, is we need you to do this because we need money, which is regarding the stimulus money. We need this passed because we're suffering out here. And so I've seen that, and I understand. I understand being a small business owner. If they're offering money, I'm going to take it. If they're sending people checks, I'm going to take it. Right. Absolutely. Especially if you're in any kind of bracket to receive that money, you shouldn't feel bad about taking it at all. Period. Plain and simple. But aside from that, the idea that it is someone else's responsibility, again, to send you money, in my opinion, and I could get roasted for this one, and that's fine. I have not been thinking that way this entire time. How about that? That has not been my mentality. My mentality is I better get it. I better get it, because I got to survive. Nobody's giving it to me. Nobody's giving it to me. I've had my biggest months ever during this time. Tons of people need to be switching to digital. And if they haven't yet, and something else happens and they haven't made the adapt or die mindset to switch to digital, well, then it's going to be potentially too late. 2-3 years from now, if something again comes up. And so again, there's nothing wrong with wanting help or expecting Congress or representatives that you voted for that are representing you and your vote to consider you and to help you when times get hard for the economy or whatever. But I would encourage you to understand that you got to look out for you first. This is, again, back to the Cardones or the Grovers or the whatevers or the Bradleys. It's like, dude, if you're not filling up your cup and taking care of you, You can't help anybody unless you help yourself. If you're not making a plan of how am I going to do this month to month, how am I going to make it happen? How am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to do this? Then you're always going to be behind in some kind of area anyway, not even just money. It could be your relationship or your health or your job you're underperforming or whatever it is. I understand this is a crazy circumstance and that people are affected by this, but a mindset shift of nobody's coming to save me could potentially save a whole lot of people through this time. And I don't think that's getting expressed enough. Right now in 2020, there's way too much emphasis on the politicians and the government are going to help us and save the country and vote this way to save America. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? It's we the people is what it all starts off with in the documents anyway. You got to look out for you. We got to look out for each other. And I think that that's an important lesson that needs to be talked about right now is you got to take care of you first and be performing at a really, really high level first before anything.
How do you charge that battery?
What additional tasks can you do every day to make sure that if something stalls, because it always does, again, this isn't a red or blue thing. They always stall. They're competing with each other. It's competition.
Yeah,
we were talking about that before we started. This is a race, a campaign race. So one side's always trying to win on the other side. But if you're not taking care of you and you're relying on these people, dude, they're going to let you down every time.
I completely agree. That's not even a red or blue comment right there. It's all
but I've seen those comments because of the discussion online is, hey, we need you to pass this, or hey, we need this, or we need funding. And I get that small businesses are struggling, but dude, nobody's coming to save any of us.
Yeah, that's life happens for us. Life happens for us, not to us. Mentality. And what's the pivot look like, right? What's that
talked about that
like in any circumstances? Because at the end of the day, those opportunities are created by the level of effort, right?
Yes.
So that's always like if the effort's put in, the opportunities are then created, right? But
Every time.
You got to be present. You got to have the effort there. And that I wholeheartedly agree. I think that, the kind of like standing back and being pressed into a corner, like, oh, we need this guy or we need that guy for the purposes because they are going to create change for me. It's like, they're not going to create change for you.
No way. You already tapped out. At that point, you already tapped out.
Yeah. At that point, like that's the scarcity mindset. And that's honestly the way, we've been, preconditioned our minds to think is that
I've seen a lot of that, and it's scary to see because I'm like, wow, that's sad.
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that assessment. I mean, but what it comes down to is honestly, and how you build momentum from that. So I don't dog on the people that think that way, but the opportunities are going to preempt that.
No, and I'm not dogging on anybody that's run into a wall because a lot of us were the wall was put in front of all of us.
Yeah.
All of us.
Yeah.
So it's there for everybody.
That where does the effort like that's also the thing. Like I'm constantly seeing things that like where do other opportunities rise? And you definitely don't want to create you don't want to definitely like just look like you're chasing things all over the place. You want to like stay somewhat like organized and intentional on what you're trying to do. But like sometimes roadblocks do come, right? COVID-19 was a major roadblock for a lot of people.
Huge.
And then what's the pivot from that? The pivot sometimes I was reading an article about I think it was like a pizza shop or something like that we're like, we have to do something about this, right? We gotta identify new ways. And it was like, I don't know if it was like a high-end pizza shop or something like that, but they started using different type of like some sort of molds. It was a while back, but it was like they used basically their brick ovens for the purposes of like maybe masks or something. Like they were creating masks. Like they made a pivot, some like crazy pivot, where they had to just keep momentum, right? They had to like keep momentum up. There was another company in Michigan. I actually know the owner of the company, and the way they did it was crazy in the amount of time they actually came up with it. But they made a like sanitization machine for N95 masks, right? So they quickly, because they knew that there was going to be a shortage. So how do we sanitize these masks so you can actually use them again, right? Instead of like just throwing them away, you sanitize them, and that was mainly meant for the hospitals. So they were going to sell them to the hospital. So there's a number of different ways that like, hey, like big business, small business, you gotta make those pivots. Sometimes the pivots like I gotta close down and I gotta basically redirect and identify like a new source on how to grow.
And that's exactly what I had to do with the music thing years ago. And I've talked about this a gazillion times, is I knew the trend was shifting digital. I knew that you could get 1 million streams. I don't know if people know how the monetization is. You might look at a song and see 2.5 million streams and think that person's rich. I'm telling you, 2.5 million streams on a song on Spotify is like $6,000. It's not very much money. So you got to think of it in comparison to what is the marketplace delivering on that number. And so I had to make a shift too. I still do music, still do entertainment, but I had to shift. Who's my market? How am I adapting to the marketplace? Podcasting is still entertainment. We're still doing it live. We're still putting on a live show. So how am I going to use my show skills? This is what I used to do. I used to broadcast live from Laguna Beach. It's just I have my guitar in my hand. This is the same system that I used to use. But I had to adapt too, because I knew that if I wanted to scale, that type of a process was not as scalable. I can only show up at so many places a week or a day. And so I think it's important for people to look at what their skills are and think, how can I use this skill to service others? And, how can I turn that into a success route for others? Because that's where you're going to see the biggest return and the most fulfillment.
Yeah. I think that's huge.
So there's a lot to this. There's a lot to
this. A lot, but for me in particular, and I know that it's produced results without a doubt. I can attest to that. It's absolutely. I try to stay at the forefront of kind of mixing up strategy and really be discerning in my approach. But number one, action at the end of the day, like good qualified action creates opportunity, right? Absolutely. It always does. Good qualified action creates good opportunity. It will always do that. So as we kind of break this down of creating that momentum, I love Momentum Mondays for the purposes of kind of like talking about this, keeping myself accountable. But that good qualified action, and what is qualified action, you might ask? Like qualified action at the end of the day, people know in their gut if it's a good action, if you at the end of the day are thinking out of the mindset of a scarcity and a level of greed. I made a post about the sacrifice for my wife, right? That's my number one, what I can control within my walls, right? Right. And typically if I'm not, and we talked about this even with the Vincent brothers, setting expectations early on, like if you're making a qualified action, is very important, right? So you kind of know. Like everyone has a gut and everyone has a gut, whether they want to listen to it or not, everyone's going to have that. So, if you follow your gut instinct that, hey, this is a good qualified action that I can take moving forward, then, it's probably going to create opportunities. If not, it's probably not going to create any sort of good opportunities. So it's really establishing what that qualified action looks like, taking the first step, jumping into the water. Don't graze your feet in, just jump into the water, full steam, go ahead and start swimming. Create those opportunities of moving forward, and don't work on anybody else's clock but your own, because your clock, no one's going to run out. You just kind of keep making those good qualified actions.
All those things tie together, and always be looking for ways to adapt. How can I use my skill in a way that morphs to what the marketplace is demanding?
Mhm.
How can I morph my talent, my skills to match what the marketplace demands? Maybe not necessarily everything I want to do all day. What if I cut out half the time for what the marketplace wants? I guarantee you that half of your time you're still going to be doing what you love to do with your skills, but you're going to triple, quadruple, quintuple your income.
Yeah.
When it comes to finances. The same thing with you switching from single family to commercial.
Yeah. I mean, we're still in both. We make money in both.
I know, but
yeah.
commercial, we've seen commercial assets have more pieces to it, more pieces to the puzzle paying rent. So you're making more money.
Yeah, and the beauty about commercial real estate, I mean, it's what I love specifically, like I love about just being an investor in general, but I love specifically about commercial real estate is that this really what I love about commercial real estate is that you can rely that you literally don't need the whole pie, and you can rely on other business owners and you can rise up together, right? I love working with other business owners, other entrepreneurs, because they all have that abundance mindset, right? They all,
Right.
I feel like majority of them do, is like, I like contracting stuff out. I would rather make less money, make significantly less money, but have another entrepreneur take over like responsibility in his strength zone, right? I have my strength zone, he has his strength zone, and we just kind of align together, right? I would rather contract that out instead of hiring more employees that like you like at the end of the day, they're just, employees try to collect a paycheck. At the, that's really what an employee does is collecting a paycheck at the end of the day. Right. I want to create, although anyone that comes into my organization, I'm trying to create leaders. We're establishing their why, their purpose of why they're doing stuff very early on. And so, and I'm sitting down with a young guy today at 3:00, right? And he's a guy that like I saw right off the bat. He's at the University of Central Florida. Just got into the real estate school at the UF, and he's wanting to sit down with me. And I'm like, dude, I'm willing to give you some of my time. I see the value in it. He wants my time. Right. But that level, and honestly, dude, I want him to come work for me for a little bit. So, but that level of just like creating that next step, that leader. I was actually another thing too. I was talking to actually a business owner. I try to empower him, right? That's another avenue that you should take. You should see who you're surrounding yourself with. Are they bringing you up, or are they crab in a bucket pulling you down, right? You want to make sure you're dealing with people that are empowering you, that are lifting you up constantly, saying, hey, and checking you when you're wrong. So that's also a good thing. I was talking to another business owner, and he's like, dude, just be careful. Be a little careful with how you're paying your resources. You don't want to pay them too much, and you don't want to give them too much responsibility because they might leave you. I'm like, what do you mean? Isn't that the purpose? Isn't that why we do what we do?
There's a guy I follow online
for our employees. Like if they're that valuable, they're even going to be more valuable if they turn around and be like, I don't care. There's enough money in the world that things go around, right? There's definitely enough in this world to fill every man's need, but not every man's greed, right? I love that because that's when we're thinking about greed, right? Be careful with those things. And he's an awesome individual, and nothing against him, but I'm just saying that if we're really hyper focused on the kind of beginning with the end in mind, not worrying about where our clock is going to run out, and just trying to make and motivate. That's why we call this Momentum Monday. Like, how are we creating momentum ourselves, but then how are we establishing the momentum in others, right? So we're just giving just positive stuff that we've seen in our lives, that we've seen in our businesses, and just in growing those. So I speak not on behalf of my employees, but also on, the contractors, the other entrepreneurs that I work with, dude. I want to constantly be rising them up. I want to be making them better leaders. I want them to make me a better leader. and we rise up together.
Yeah, I dig that, dude. I dig that. But it's all about like what we said from the beginning. Take action, start now. I just posted something on Twitter about that this morning, and I take my screenshots from Twitter and post them over on Instagram because Gary Vee told me to. But it says where you are right now is not your final destination. Make the commitment to taking action on the future you dreamed of. Start today.
Today, baby.
Hey, man. Today could be your day. Momentum Monday. Matty Matt, it's been a pleasure to watch the replay. Subscribe here on Facebook or on YouTube or on Instagram at official Matt Tack. And we will see you all next time.
Let's do it to it.